Chapter 19. The ringing of the phone woke Thomas from a deep sleep. The nightmarish image of his mother lying lifelessly on a stretcher, and his father standing only a few feet away, helpless and not moving, remained vivid in his mind. With a lingering feeling of doom, he reached for the phone. Groggily he answered. "Thomas here." "Toby?" came the voice from the other end of the line. "Mom, what's up? Is anything wrong?" He sat up, totally awake now. "Nothing, honey. I just hadn't heard from you in a while, and when I spoke to Marlena, she gave me this number. God, Mom, you scared me half to death." He ran his fingers through his hair. He was thirsty and needed to relieve himself. "I'm sorry, honey. I just wanted to hear your voice and say that I miss you. When can you guys come home for a few days?" Thomas rolled his eyes, knowing his mother would never understand the importance of his job and why he had to live in D.C., hundreds of miles from his hometown. "Not for a while, Mom. I'm on a big case and I just can't leave. Why don't you talk with Marlena and make arrangements for you, Dad, and Charlie to come our way? I'll be back home in a few days." "Great, we can do that. I'd love to see D.C. and the museums again. You wouldn't mind a house full?" "Not at all, Mom. I would love a hug from my mother right about now. Look, call Marlena, set it up, and I'll see you soon, okay?" "All right, sweetheart. I love you." "Love you too, Mom." He headed for the bathroom where there was a knock at his door. This is going to be one of those days, he thought. I can just feel it. "I'm coming," he hollered to the intruder. "Who is it?" "It's me, you sleepyhead," Carrie yelled back. He opened the door, hiding his half-naked body, and squinted as the light hit his eyes. "What time is it?" "About 10:15. She handed him a hot cup of coffee. "Freshly brewed, direct from my room. I'll be downstairs eating. Now get going." "Damn, I slept in. I thought you were going to call me." "Nah, you needed your sleep. I'm going to get some breakfast. See you in a few." He closed the door as Carrie strutted off down the hall. "That girl has way too much energy," he mused. Carrie Clark was a vibrant 22-year-old, anxious to become the next 00 agent. She had joined the FBI straight out of college, where her major was business management. After having watched the bumbling agents during the long-ago Waco, Texas incident, along with other recent calamities, Carrie felt she could do a much better job. So upon graduation, she walked into the FBI headquarters building in Washington and proudly announced that she was going to be the best thing that ever happened to them. With her exceptional grade point average and high score on her entrance exam, Carrie was immediately accepted and sent to the academy, where she graduated at the top of her class. Although she looked the part of the stereotypical dumb blonde, her mental and educational abilities could never fit that degrading category. Oh, she could play the part when she wanted or needed to, but Carrie was determined to become one of the FBI's top agents, and she would definitely be one of their most aggressive agents. The dark, heavy curtains blocked out the sunlight. As Thomas yanked them open, the morning light poured into his room. He rubbed his eyes and took a sip of the steaming coffee. His head ached and he was exhausted. He admired the view for a few more seconds before hitting the shower. By 10:40 he was in the lobby waiting for Carrie, but there was no sign of her anywhere. He headed toward the sound of people eating and the smell of food. Carrie was sitting by herself, enjoying a plateful. An extra chair was beckoning him to sit. His stomach growled, and he thought, what the heck? Carrie didn't look even close to being finished. He grabbed a plate and filled it with eggs, potatoes, and ham. There was only one other couple in the small room and an attendant. As he took a seat next to Carrie, the attendant asked what he'd like to drink. He thought a moment and decided on some juice. "So where are we off to today?" Carrie asked through a mouthful. Thomas wondered if anyone had ever taught this young lady any table manners. "The senator's home, and to find that temporary agency." "Sounds good," Carrie replied, chewing and swallowing. The cell phone beeped a jingle in Thomas's jacket. He took a sip of his juice, cleared his mouth of food, and clicked the talk button. "Edwards." It was a very nervous and loud Stephen Proudler. He was almost yelling into the phone. "Calm down, Proudler," Thomas scolded. "I can't understand a word you're saying." Agent Proudler was also young, about 26. He was a typical FBI field agent, cocky and arrogant. His goal was to become a Secret Service man and rub elbows with the president someday. Why anyone would strive to become a target was beyond Thomas's understanding, but wasn't that what freedom of choice was all about? "What is it?" Carrie asked, sucking through a straw. Thomas shrugged his shoulders and listened to Agent Prowler. Thomas scowled. "What do you mean you don't know where the work order originated?" He listened for a few seconds and said, "Huh? How can whoever ordered it not exist?" "What is it?" Carrie interrupted, her appetite fading. "Would you shut up?" Thomas snapped at her. "I can't hear what he's saying." Everyone's nerves were becoming frayed. "Look," Thomas said to Prowler, "take what information you have so far and head back to the office. Try to make some sense out of it all, and we'll meet you there tomorrow." He sat silently for a while as he listened to Prowler's ramblings. Then he interrupted. "What the hell are you talking about now? No, you're not going to quit the fort." "What? Your family? Who's threatening you? God damn it, what in the name of hell are you talking about?" "Afraid of what? Calm down, Prowler." Thomas was now yelling into the phone. The other couple in the room had stopped talking and was listening to the intense conversation at the other table. Even the attendant had stopped working and began to listen. Carrie bumped Thomas's arm, and when he glared at her, she used her eyes to motion around the room. Thomas took the hint and gathered his things. He left, still listening intently and frowning. Carrie asked for the tab, paid the bill, and met Thomas outside. He was unlocking the car and tossing his briefcase and jacket on the back seat, still on the phone, when she hopped onto the passenger seat. "Where are you?" Thomas asked Prowler as he slid behind the wheel. "Okay, listen carefully. Take what you have and drop it in the mail." He paused. "To the office." Another pause. "Get an overnight envelope from the post office and just drop it in any mailbox, but don't forget to put some stamps on it." Another brief pause. "Fine. Check into a hotel then. Call me tomorrow. Oh, and use cash. If you're that concerned, I recommend you don't use your charge." Prowler, "Look, we've got to hit a couple of places today, and then we'll see about taking an earlier flight back. We'll shoot for tonight instead of tomorrow." "All right. Call me if anything else unusual happens, and be safe." "All right. Bye." "What was that all about?" Carrie asked. Thomas stared at his phone as he answered. "I don't really know, but this case just keeps getting weirder and weirder. Prowler was so upset. He kept saying that our lives were in danger, something to do with that work order we faxed them yesterday." "How could that put our lives in danger?" She was puzzled now, too, but her inquisitive mind was working to fill in the blanks. There had never been a puzzle she couldn't solve, given enough time. Thomas continued. He said that when he started to ask questions about it, he received a call from someone who threatened him. The guy never introduced himself. Prowler also said that they traced the work order to a division at the Pentagon, but no one at the Pentagon ever heard of that division or department. Seems to be non-existent. "Are you nuts? That stuff only happens in the movies." Thomas started the car. "I don't know. Maybe he had too much to drink last night or something." "He doesn't drink. What was that about the mail?" Carrie continued to badger Thomas with questions about his conversation with Prowler. The idea of a secret division in the Pentagon was unrealistic, but deep down inside she knew it could be possible, and that possibility frightened her. Thomas looked at his directions again and then into the rearview mirror. Prowler said he didn't feel safe with the stuff they'd just gathered from their investigation. Doesn't make any sense. He slowly backed out of the parking space. "Don't know, but we can check it out when we get back." Carrie didn't know what was going on, but knew that this assignment would be anything but normal or safe. Chapter 20. The deceased senator's mini mansion was far from ordinary, located about 20 minutes from his home office. The house was situated on about 6 acres of sprawling lawns and wooded forests. It was an old Victorian-style home surrounded by huge old trees and what seemed like miles of colorfully decorated flower beds. The wife and adult children were crying and mourning their current loss, and the house staff was busy with their daily chores. Carrie and Thomas had decided not to mention anything about the green negligee just yet, since the family had enough on their minds with the media and upcoming funeral. After briefly talking with the family, the two agents examined the bathroom where the electrocution had taken place. It had already been cleaned spotlessly by the maids. The agent spoke to the two sons and then to the wife. The wife had been on a mini vacation when it happened, an Alaskan cruise with 6 other senators' wives. She had rushed home a week early once notified. Her 2 boys lived nearby with their families and had been just as surprised as their mother when told of their father's untimely death. As far as the family was concerned, it had been a terrible accident. Thomas wanted to keep their perception that way, for now. The agents decided to take a walk through the yard. After searching the grounds, nothing looked out of place as far as they could tell. Carrie broke the silence first. I just don't get it. What's that? Thomas was standing still, surveying the property from the house to the front gate. Why would anyone who has it all take such a risk for a little sex? She looked directly at him. Why are you looking at me that way? I don't mess around. Not every man has affairs, you know. He shook his head and started up the driveway toward the house. This place is huge, Carrie said. Sorry, didn't mean to point fingers, but why would someone do that? I don't know. Maybe it's a character flaw or something. Also, how could someone go from there to there and not be seen? Carrie stopped walking and pointed from the main gate to the house, trying to judge the distance between them. We saw her enter from that gate, but not go into the house. How do we know it's a she? Thomas asked. Well, not to be gross or anything, but if you open the bag with the green nightie, well, it smells like a woman. So unless he took a used negligee and left it behind, it has to be a woman. Whoever came in the gate, she said, pointing at it, had the nightie on under the heavy coat. She smiled as she gave Thomas her views. Not a bad conclusion. So how did she get in, Smarty Pants? Carrie looked around. She followed the fence with her eyes to the left. It led to the pool area on the east side of the house. She then visually followed the fence to the right, where there was an area with overgrown bushes and untrimmed trees. This way, I'll show you how, she said, and started to jog back toward the front gate. What are you talking about? Thomas yelled as he tried to keep up with her. No, stop, she yelled back. Go back to the house. Try to follow me with your eyes. See if I don't disappear. This is nuts. But why not? I must remember to use the word weird for this whole case. Carrie waited until Thomas stopped and turned around, then ducked into the bushes. He immediately lost sight of her. He scanned the grounds, but she was nowhere to be seen. He watched the bushes for any sign of movement. Nothing. Several minutes passed, and he started to worry. He decided to give her 2 more minutes before he'd go look for her. Boo! Carrie spooked at Thomas from behind. He jumped and turned around and found himself face to face with the bright and smiling Carrie. How did you do that? He demanded. Easy. Okay. Show me. Sure. Follow me. Put your stuff down. He sat his briefcase and jacket on the grass near the driveway and followed her. Once at the front gate, she turned and asked, Ready? Ready for what? Carrie ducked into the bushes, and Thomas followed. The shady area was full of huge overgrown brush taller than him, although it hadn't seemed that tall when he was standing by the house. It was definitely an optical illusion. As he followed Carrie, a wall of bricks popped into view. Come on, this is too cool, she said. You've got to see it for yourself. She followed a little dirt path through the bushes that led to the front of a small brick shed. She opened the door, and they stepped inside. What's this place? He asked, looking around at the gardening tools, lawnmowers, and other old and rusty equipment. The smell of sour grass was present, and flies buzzed around their heads and bounced off the dirty windows that were full of cobwebs and cast an eerie yellow glow throughout the shed. Right here, she pointed to the ground. Beneath her feet was a wooden trap door with a large inset round ring to assist in opening. I asked the boys about the yard and what was here, she explained. One of them told me about this place and how they used to play hide and seek. They used this to sneak up on their friends who didn't know about it. Well, what is it? He asked, still not sure of what was going on. It's a tunnel, silly. A tunnel that leads from here to the house. The gardener still uses it. Come on, I'll show you. Carrie pulled on the ring, and the trapdoor opened with a loud shriek that sent a cold chill up Thomas's spine. In the up position, the door was almost as tall as she was. She climbed down a few steps and smiled up at him, then reached in and flipped on the lights. The tunnel lit, but all Thomas could see was a large hole in the ground with steps leading down. He wasn't comfortable pulling the trapdoor shut behind them as they descended into the hole. The stairs were relatively new and stable, and it was obvious the tunnel had been maintained and used on a regular basis. But there was a musty old smell about it that made him believe that the tunnel itself was not new. The walls were made of brick, and the floor was dirt pounded hard from years of hurrying feet. The ceiling was made of wooden planks. Lights encased in wire were hung about every 4 feet. A pipe ran the length of the tunnel, and Thomas figured it was probably for electricity. They strolled through the tunnel, amazed at what a few dollars could buy. No insects or little critters were found, and no evidence of any ever having been there either. The tunnel seemed to go on for miles, but Thomas knew that was an illusion. Because they were enclosed, the space seemed farther than it actually was. They were about in the middle of this exciting tour when Thomas heard a deep rumble from overhead and looked around in alarm. "That's a car," Carrie stated calmly. "You seem to like this place." "I grew up in nowhere land, and we played in small tunnels under the roads. When the new highway was built, large pipes were used for the streams. We used to play in them too. They weren't as clean as this by any means. The cars made that same noise. We used to scare each other by saying that the cars were going to crash down on us at any moment. We'd then scream and run out." She got a strange look from Thomas. "Hey, we were kids." "Great," he said. "This makes me uncomfortable. Let's get going." As they neared the end, Thomas noticed 3 sets of stairs that led straight up. He examined each direction, thinking. He now understood how Dorothy felt in The Wizard of Oz. All he needed was a scarecrow to tell him which way to go. The words of the scarecrow kept playing over and over in his mind. Why, some people go both ways. Ever since Thomas had been a little boy, he had wondered how someone could go both ways. Didn't seem very logical. He remembered his mother explaining that the movie was all in fun, and they were making light of a situation. Thomas thought of his mother now. "Which way?" he asked. "Well, that way," she said, pointing to the right, "is the way I went a few minutes ago. It takes you to the pool house, right inside the pool house." He pointed to the left. "What about that way?" "Don't know. The kid said to take the right." "Okay, I'll go straight and you go left," he said. "Okay." Carrie bounced up the stairs, and Thomas hurried straight ahead. He didn't like being in this tunnel. After about 10 steps going straight up, the stairs turned to the left and then continued for about another 10 steps. The stairs then turned left again with another set of stairs. This pattern continued for what seemed like forever to Thomas, and he wondered if it had been built as a toy for the children. When he finally reached the top, he was on a small landing with a small window and a regular-sized door. "Now I feel like I'm at Disneyland," he said out loud. He looked out the window and realized that he was high up and overlooking the backyard. Parts of the roof could be seen and the tops of some trees. He tried the door, and it easily creaked open. "Not tight on security around here," he said out loud. He entered a large unfinished room with a high-beam ceiling. Cobwebs hung from the rafters, and boxes of every size were piled in uneven stacks. Other items, long since discarded and forgotten, were scattered about: an old crib, an old dresser, old mirrors, and toys that were probably worth a few dollars to a collector. A path wandered from the far side of the attic to this door. Maybe an outside escape route? He wondered. Certainly an unusual architectural design. The floor was bare, unfinished hard wood, and covered with dust. Thomas stopped dead in his tracks. A trail of fresh footprints in the dust led from where he stood straight across the attic floor to the stairs on the far side, and back again. He now understood how the intruder had entered and exited without being caught on tape. It was obvious that this person had been invited, and our dear senator didn't want anyone knowing about the invitation. He thought. He pulled out his cell phone and punched in Carrie's number. She answered immediately. "Where are you? I'm waiting out front." "Where did your stairs go?" he asked. "To the back of the kitchen. I ended up in a pantry with mops and buckets. What about you?" "I recommend you follow my stairs. I think you'll enjoy this." "I'm there," she said. His phone beeped once and the signal was gone. Carrie was on her way. Carrie stood at the door of the attic glaring at Thomas. "I'm sure," she panted, "there's a good reason," more panting, "you called me up here." She had run the whole way. "I didn't tell you to run, but look at this." "What, the mess?" "No! Footprints! This is how she got in here," he announced. "Oh, so we're agreeing it's a female, are we?" "It has to be. I want to look at that tape again when we get back and check out the mannerisms of the suspect. I'm sure they'll be feminine. Do me a favor. Call in some local technicians. I want these footprints analyzed. I want size, possibly weight, and type of shoe." "Yes, sir. I'm on it." Carrie dialed her phone as they headed back down the stairs. They'd just come up. Thomas didn't want to disturb the dust and felt it important to retain the attic in the condition it was as much as possible. He also wanted to talk to the family again, preferably before the FBI technicians arrived. He rang the doorbell while Carrie stood in the driveway talking on her phone. The maid cautiously opened the door. "Yes?" "I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to speak with the family again," Thomas said apologetically. The maid looked angry. "This had better be important." "Yes, ma'am, it is." He was escorted back to the living room where the two sons were consoling their mother. She was still crying. Their lawyer had arrived and had obviously been telling them some disturbing news. All four of them looked angrily at Thomas as he entered. The eldest son immediately stood and approached Thomas. "You've got some nerve coming back in here. We were just told that you guys suspect what you guys suspect. Who in the hell do you think you are, accusing our father of having an illicit affair?" He was clearly trying to take the place of the man of the family and protect his mother. "Junior, let me handle this." A tall, lean, distinguished-looking man with slightly graying temples held out his hand to Thomas. "Excuse me for not introducing myself. I'm the family lawyer, Jack Wiltshire." "Thank you, Mr. Wiltshire," Thomas said. "Look, I'm sorry you had to hear about this. The reason we're here is to confirm our suspicions before announcing them to you or anyone," he explained, not wanting to cause any more hurt. "What have you found out, Mr. Edwards?" the senator's wife asked between tears. "We're not exactly sure, ma'am." "But you found something," Junior said. Thomas had to muster additional strength for his next sentence. "Yes, we have. May I ask you a couple of questions?" Junior was ready to explode. "What the hell do you think our mother could possibly know?" "I don't know," Thomas replied. The wife gathered herself. "It's okay. Please, sit down. If someone murdered my husband, I want to do everything I can to help find out who that person was." "Are you sure, Mom?" Junior was concerned for the emotional health of his mother. "Yes," Wiltshire said. "Let's sit and talk." He was curious to hear what the agent had to say. Junior took a seat next to his mother. The younger son, Dexter, was sitting on the other side, holding his mother's hand. The lawyer took a seat in the chair across from the family. That left either a chair or a couch for Thomas. He chose the chair. He decided to start off easy. "First, tell me about the tunnel." Dexter answered. "I told your assistant earlier, but I'll tell you now. It's not a secret. This house is very old. It's been renovated, so you'd never know how old it really is. The tunnel used to be the servants' entrance before the road was put in. The servants' quarters had been located in the attic, but they've long since been removed. The original owners didn't want to see servants on the grounds, so they had the tunnels built. They're all over this property, Agent Edwards. There are some that we haven't even been in. They're old and not safe anymore. A servant could go literally anywhere on this property and never be seen, then suddenly pop up to serve someone a drink or work in the gardens. We used to play in some of those tunnels as kids. They made for some great games." "Are they common knowledge? Who else knows about them?" Thomas asked. "Mostly just family and close friends. There's really no reason to go around telling people you have tunnels in your yard. Like I said, most of them are blocked off and never used. The gardener still uses a couple of them. In the hot summers, they're cool, and during the winters, they're warm. This reminded Dexter of his younger days, and tears fell from his eyes. Thomas thought a minute about his next question. Okay, do you know when the last time someone used the stairs to the attic? The wife responded this time. We don't use those stairs, Mr. Edwards. They're kept locked. The stairs are very old and dangerous. This house has many hidden staircases. They, too, were for the servants during the earlier years. Why do you ask? We were just up there, and the door was not locked, Thomas replied. The four looked at each other. The mother lowered her head and started to cry again. Dexter, the younger son, shook his head in complete disbelief. Junior stood, walked to the fireplace, put both hands on the mantel, and yelled, God damn him! God damn you, Dad! Then he cried. Mr. Wiltshire tried to hug the boy, but was shrugged off. Then Junior walked to the other side of the room. After a couple of other quick questions, Thomas was finished. He excused himself and met Carrie by the front gate. She was still waiting for the evidence team to arrive. Did you tell the family not to go upstairs? She asked. Yep. How much longer? Any minute now. As she finished her sentence, a car drove up and parked. 2 men in white coats emerged carrying large black cases. They flashed their badges and followed Carrie and Thomas to the attic via the tunnel. One of the technicians wanted to go back down and come up the stairs on the other side of the attic from inside the house. Thomas heard a camera clicking behind him as they descended the stairs. He felt bad about disturbing the family again, but rang the house doorbell for the 3rd time. Junior answered this time instead of the maid. Sorry, Thomas said. We need to use the back stairs to the attic. He didn't know if he should smile or frown, so he simply looked down at his shoes. Sure. Junior stepped aside as the 2 men entered the house. As he closed the door behind them, Junior spoke in a soft voice to Thomas. Look, there are some things you should know, but I can't tell you here. I'll be in Washington in a few weeks. Can I come see you then? His eyes were red and swollen from crying. Thomas couldn't express in words what he was feeling. Look, I really am sorry. I lost my father when I was very young. I do understand. Thanks, Junior said. This way. He led the 2 men to the back stairs. As they walked through the halls, Thomas realized the enormity of the house. The halls alone were large enough to be rooms by themselves. My father was not an honest man, Mr. Edwards, Junior said in a matter-of-fact tone. Thomas felt it best to stay quiet. Most people said more when questions weren't asked. It sometimes seemed as though they were answering their own questions. Junior continued to speak as they walked. It's true that he had many female friends. He just never brought one here before. My father may not have been the most perfect man, but he did have his scruples. He would not have invited her here and disgraced our mother that way. That just wasn't him. Junior unlocked the door that led to a small closet-sized room with stairs. Here you go. As you can see, Mr. Edwards, we do lock these doors. We'd have no way of keeping unwanted guests out without locking them. There's a landing for each floor. We have 3 floors in this house, plus the attic, so that makes 4. Each floor should be locked. Junior held the door for them and handed Thomas a key. He obviously had no intentions of accompanying them. If I don't see you again, Thomas said, thank you for your help, and if you come to D.C., give me a call. He held out a business card. Junior accepted it and closed the door behind them. Thomas and the technician climbed the stairs and checked the doors on each floor. Only the 3rd floor was locked. Thomas made a note to find out who had access to the keys. Obviously, someone had unlocked the other doors. They reached the attic and stood at the top of the stairs, where they could see Carrie was assisting the other technician in collecting evidence. What are you finding so far? Thomas yelled from across the attic. The room took up the whole top of the house. The walls from the servants' quarters, along with the original ceiling, had long since been removed, making the attic immense. He could not see the far end from where he stood. Carrie and the other agent looked lost in the vast space. The technician and Carrie met Thomas in the middle. Nothing exciting, actually, the technician said. I'll take back my findings to be analyzed. I'll put a rush on it for you, sir. It was a woman, though. If it was a man, he had very small feet and didn't weigh very much. Carrie and Thomas left the men alone to finish their work. It was time to find the temporary agency that had placed Maxine Thornton.